Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is that you are, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for making us a part of your day. I am Brad Franklin, Digital Media Relations Manager here in Chesterfield. Very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. Now, as we sit here, it is late June. We are in the throes of very, very high temperatures, and I'm really excited to have our guest on because even though this is something happened a little earlier in the year, this is another one of these monumental moments, I think, not just for Chesterfield County, but obviously for the HARP program. I'm very glad to welcome Sheriff Karl Leonard to the podcast. Sheriff Leonard, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you spending some time with us talking about the trip that you took to Rwanda earlier this year to talk about HARP and all of the various pieces of the puzzle. I know there was a symposium there, which we'll get to in a minute. I always like to start off with a little bit of an intro. You are no stranger to this podcast. You are no stranger to many people who listen to this podcast. But real quick, tell the folks a little bit about your background and how you kind of came into this line of work, not just in terms of the sheriff's office, but also with HARP.
Yeah, so having been in this for 44 years now, I can't do anything really quick with this introduction. But, you know, I was hired by Chief Pittman of the police department back in 1981.
Right.
And went on to have a very productive career, 31-year career with the police department, rising through the ranks, retiring as a major in charge of everything uniformed. Mm-hmm. I left the police department to go back on active duty with the military.
Right.
And was working out of the Pentagon and working with returning warriors coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, mm-hmm. Dealing with a lot of the PTSD that was coming back there, the trauma, things like that. Mm-hmm. Which kind of set the stage for where I am today. Mm-hmm. While I was working out of the Pentagon, I received a phone call from my predecessor, Sheriff Dennis Proffitt, who reached out to me, and we knew each other from working in the police department and the sheriff's office. We weren't friends like that. We were acquaintances. And
right.
he called me and said, listen, I'm thinking about retiring. I don't have anybody ready to step up. I was thinking about you. You'd be a great fit. Would you consider being sheriff?
Yeah.
It didn't take me any time to answer. No, sir, not at all. And I truly was not interested. I just finished a 31-year career with the police department, a very good career. I've done my law enforcement.
Yep.
And I said I really wasn't interested. And he said, okay, well, I'm not retiring right now, but, think about it.
Yeah.
And, months and months go by, and I started thinking about it. Well, what an opportunity to lead an organization and to affect an imprint on an organization. Mm-hmm. So I called him back, said I would be interested, and he stepped down, and I ran a special election and got elected by a large margin, and became sheriff in February of 2014.
Yeah, and isn't it crazy to think about that phone call? And now, not just in terms of the career, this is almost like the second career, essentially, if you want to call it that, right? I hope that's okay. You're not giving me daggers right now, so that's a good sign. But and then also too the work that HARP has done, and certainly the opportunity to go to Rwanda and speak at a symposium and do the kind of things that you've been able to do. I just find it fascinating to think about when you picked up the phone that day and had that first phone call, and you were very much not for it. To look back, if almost like your future self could talk to yourself then, just the range of just surprise and awe that would have caused your former older self, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's really surreal because once I became sheriff, I'm like, okay, you're sheriff. Now what? What does a sheriff do? And I really didn't know. Yeah. I didn't have any plans other than leading an organization. And I had led in the police department, led in the military, so leading came natural. Right. But I really didn't have a plan. But then the plan forced itself on me. And in early 2015, we started seeing the onset of the heroin epidemic.
Right.
And back then it was all heroin. Mm-hmm. And it started flooding my jail to the tune of 4 a day, 5 a day, 10 a day, 20 a day. Mm. And then at the height of this, in early 2016, we started seeing about 25 people coming in a day, all suffering from heroin addiction.
Right.
Overwhelming the jail, overwhelming our resources, our deputies. And that day in March of 2016, I just reached a point of utter frustration and said, we got to do more. We got to do something, right? I want a recovery program, and I want it today. Right. And that's how it started.
Yeah. And to think, I mean, in some ways, I guess maybe it was almost like a blessing in disguise that it happened so quickly after your tenure had started because, to your point, you were sort of in the beginning stages. It wasn't like you had been sheriff for 15 years, you know what I mean? And so you were sort of in that mindset of sort of figuring out what it all looked like. And then this thing made you look in this specific direction. As HARP has grown over the past few years, and I feel like we've certainly talked a lot about it, how would you kind of describe what these first 9 years of the program have been like?
It's really beyond description. And I'll tell you, from my staff in the HARP program and myself, the most difficult question we get is, what is HARP? Because we can't describe HARP. HARP is more than a sterile program in a book. HARP is it's a way of life. It's a mindset. It's an existence. And it has continued to evolve over the last 9 years. It's nothing today like it was 9 years ago, but it's nothing today like it was last year.
Yeah, right.
It just continues to evolve and develop into this program that is having immense effects on helping people get into lifelong recovery. And I can sit here and say that till I'm blue in the face. Our program is extremely successful. We're saving lives. We're getting people to where they need to be. But if I don't back that up in this day of empirical data, it means nothing. Yeah. So we've had a number of external studies come in. One was an 18-month study by the Virginia Commonwealth University that we contracted with. Both these studies found the program to be extremely successful, saving lives, with a recidivism rate of 17%. Now, let me put that in context. The national average for recidivism in our country is 70%. We're sitting at 17%.
And recidivism, how would you just, for real quick, for folks who don't know what that concept means, help them understand.
Right. So recidivism is the revolving door of coming in and out of jails, in and out of the criminal justice field. Every time you get released, you get rearrested, you reoffend, you come back in, and that cycle never breaks. That's all a burden on taxpayers. It's expensive to keep somebody in our jail. Right. It's $128 a day. I think it's about $64,000 a year.
Right.
So I've reduced from the national average of 70 down to 17 is a 53% reduction in recidivism in Chesterfield County. Right. That's a significant cost savings in the millions and millions of dollars to our taxpayers.
And then in the fun reality of that is that in addition to that, you're literally the HARP program is changing lives, not just in terms. And this is the thing I think that is really probably the hardest thing to get your arms around, right? Which is you can point to the specific folks who have been in the jail, who have been through the program, whose lives have been changed. But think about the people who are connected to them, whose lives are made better because their loved one is getting themselves back on their feet, which is getting themselves out of that sort of cycle of addiction, who have that support. But then extrapolate that out and think about the people that those folks impact, right? How many lives are touched? And then so you little publications like Rolling Stone or the Wall Street Journal, the number of people who see, this is what HARP is doing, and they read the stats, to your point about the study of ECU, and you start thinking about the people that then are changed. The magnification, right? The way that those, for lack of a description, the tentacles reach out and touch and make things better for so many different people. As we mentioned earlier, you had this opportunity to go to Rwanda to talk at this symposium, to present an international symposium on trauma-informed care in correctional facilities, late January, early February. How did HARP end up on their radar, and what was it like when you kind of first had those first initial conversations about taking your message, taking your program, you and Carrie, and taking this to Rwanda to talk to folks about it?
Well, this started, and it happened pretty quick. It actually originated from the Peaceful Heart Network, which is an organization that operates out of Sweden. They're one of the leading organizations for the use of tapping and havening, some techniques we use in the jail, in the treatment of trauma. And, they've been spending a lot of time in Rwanda. Rwanda is probably the epicenter in our world of trauma because of the genocide that occurred in 1994. Right. And if you know anything about the genocide, it was a fateful day that started where, tribes and your race was given to you by the government, and that's a little bit different than what we understand here. Yeah. You were either Tutsi or Hutu, and you were assigned by your government what race you were based on your stature, whether it was your height or how many livestock you owned, something like that. Right. So within a family, you could have two different races. And again, race was defined by the tribe assigned to you by your government. Right. So on a day in 1994 when the genocide happened, you were having people murdered by their family members, by their friends, by their sons, by their daughters, by their parents. Yeah. The leftover trauma that has resulted is immense in that country because you've grown up now not knowing who you can trust, because you knew you couldn't trust your neighbor because they killed you.
Right.
You couldn't trust your friends because they killed you.
Right.
You couldn't trust your own family members
Right.
because they killed you. So this country has the highest degree of trauma in the world right now, and that's why Peaceful Heart Network is focusing on Rwanda.
Right.
Then that network started seeing what we were doing in our drug program here in Chesterfield, in the HARP program, with the use of havening, tapping, and other techniques to address trauma, which, by the way, is why we're so successful. Our program does not focus on drug use or alcohol use. That's not the problem.
Right.
That's the solution that people suffering from addiction run to.
Right.
It's the underlying trauma that is the problem. And unless you peel back those layers and address that, you're not going to be successful.
Right.
That's why we are so successful. Right. So they recognized what we were doing, saw what we were doing to the great success we had, and extended an invite for us to come to the symposium in Rwanda.
Yeah. So 2 of only 3 Americans asked to participate in the symposium, organized obviously by Peaceful Heart. You're talking about, I can't even imagine going into this where your mindset was. I mean, the opportunity to do it is just, I'm sure, was extremely humbling. But then the sort of maybe pressure that comes with that, right? The idea of taking this message and being able to, you're not talking just to a group, here in Virginia or here in the States. You're talking about, from all walks of life, right? Africa, India, Europe, Latin America, all different parts of the world, coming in this one location. One of the things I'm curious from your time on the ground there, in both to hear how it went, but also some of the things that you did while you were there for the symposium. Who all did you get a chance to talk to, and what were some of the things that you took away from it in terms of like some of the experiences that you had?
So it was a number of great opportunities for us to share what we're doing, and one of them was at one of their major prisons in Rwanda. And when I say a major prison, this prison would hold tens of thousands of people, not what we're accustomed to, where we're holding several hundred people or 1,500. Their prisons are on a whole different scale. And they have the same issues we have with people suffering from trauma, obviously. And the opportunity to go into this prison, and nobody, by the way, is ever allowed inside the doors of these prisons in Africa. It's a whole different system than you would find like in Virginia Department of Corrections.
Yeah.
But we were allowed to go behind the gates and actually intermingle with the inmates who were there, and address them and actually start doing some of our trauma techniques with them inside the prison, which was pretty unique.
Yeah. And in terms of the symposium itself, first off, how many days roughly were you there?
We were there for a week. The symposium was 3 days. On the back end. On the front end, we did travel to the prison. We also did a number of schoolhouses we went to. Okay. And so you're having these opportunities to interface with a lot of different people. And then the symposium itself, were you giving presentations? Were you talking to small groups? Like what was the logistics of the symposium itself? So the symposium itself was a very small group. It was about 20 of us from across the world. Yeah. The experts across the world dealing with trauma. We had a couple unique ladies coming from Ukraine who were dealing with the trauma coming out of the Ukraine-Russia war. Right. And they have a whole different aspect that they're addressing. Yeah. Families fleeing mainly to Poland. So they're receiving all these people coming from Ukraine to Poland with a high degree of trauma, and they're helping them. So it was really more of a think tank than it was a symposium. Gotcha. That's probably a bad comparison, but no, that makes sense. Just documenting best practices that we're all using for the common good. Yeah, I want to get to some takeaways here in a second, but in terms of maybe some things, I'm always curious when in these kind of situations, especially when it's like a first time someone goes and does something, how did it sort of compare to what you expected it to be? What was the contrast between what you thought it would be and what you eventually found it to be? So we actually had no idea what to expect. Now, I will say with my military, I've been to several third world countries before. Right. I've been to the Middle East several times on deployments. I'm used to being in countries that are third world countries. Right. A lot of our group has never been to a third world country, and if you've not seen or been in one of those countries, it is eye-opening to see how people live and what conditions are. Right. But so we really didn't have any of those expectations of what to find or what we're going to see. Right. What I did find though was what we're doing. Our treatment techniques here at our jail are the universal language, and it broke down all language barriers. Interesting. Yeah. So we could do our techniques without having the common language to speak to them. Right. and we're all working on the same thing, our underlying trauma, which is common throughout the world.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the technique piece of it. Were there any other sort of takeaways, maybe either from your experiences in terms of the way people received HARP, or maybe even your experiences hearing from the other folks who were there, that other 20 or so as a part of this group? Were there any other takeaways that you can bring back to HARP back here to maybe even see how they might work for you guys?
Well, I don't want this to sound bad, but there weren't really a lot of takeaways where we learned something new.
Gotcha.
Because I think we're so advanced at what we're doing at our jail.
Right.
But what it did, it reassured us that what we're doing is the right thing.
Right.
It was validation to everything we're doing.
Yeah.
Because everybody's doing the same thing we're doing and getting the same great results.
Right.
So it really was that validation to we're on the right path here. We've got something here going.
Yeah.
But it was, being in a prison, it was funny. Carrie Rhodes, who's our director of behavioral mental health, she came with me. She's probably the nation's leader in tapping techniques in the United States. And we're sitting there as they're going through the introductions at the beginning of our work at the prison. We're sitting there looking at all these inmates, and we're each pointing to inmates in this, Rwandan prison who we identify with somebody in our jail. We would say, "Oh, that's our Sammy. That's our Deborah. That's our Elizabeth." You know, because they have the same look, the same mannerism. They're suffering from the same issue, trauma.
Right.
And it really felt like we were in our own jail. It was such a surreal, comfortable position to be in, saying, this is the Chesterfield County Jail.
Yeah.
But mind you, their prison is all dirt floors. It's all outdoors. It's,
but the humanity, the through lines were clear to you guys.
Mirrored image of us.
Interesting.
It really felt like it was our jail.
That's interesting. And in terms of you mentioned the validation piece, I can also see a scenario where that just reinvigorates you even more to come back home and continue doing the work that you're doing. I'll get you out of here on this one. I mentioned, being in Rolling Stone, Wall Street Journal. We talked about this a little bit off air before we started recording, but it's one of those things that's both humbling, but also, as you described, you can't lose sight. You can't let any one success, I believe, is the mantra that you guys have. How rewarding is it to continue to see the HARP program 9 years in, thriving, growing, evolving, and not just, in terms of the lives that you're impacting here, but as I said before, knowing that there are so many people who are paying attention and getting so much out of the work that you guys are doing?
Right. So it requires a lot of self-discipline on our part.
Right.
Obviously, we don't go into this saying we want exposure, we want media coverage, we want to get international publicity. It's never been our goal, not what we want to do. We're all human, so the ego, when those things happen, it's a positive stroke to our egos. Fair. But I always remind our folks, and we now say it often, we will not be defined by one program or one success. We're far greater than just the HARP program. That is one piece of everything we do in the sheriff's office, and we got to keep focused on all the missions we deliver to our citizens. Yeah. But HARP, by far, is the standout one that gets us the recognition. Yeah,
and I can imagine, too, going somewhere like this, having this opportunity that you came back and like I said, that reinvigoration, that even more resolute than ever to continue to do and learn and things. I do real quick. I said I lied a second ago when I said I wanted to get you on there because you said tapping a couple of times, and I'm just curious if we can real quick for folks who might be listening or watching who aren't sure what that means. Can you give me a little flavor of what those kind of techniques are and how you would describe them?
So I wish I had Carrie Rhodes here because she could explain it in great detail. This is my bad. I just had But trauma tapping techniques are based on science. It's based on medical history. It's based on acupuncture.
Okay.
It is using your hands to touch certain focal points on your body. It's all about interrupting your brain waves, sending signals to your brain to calm down, to relax.
Right. Yep.
There's such a science behind trauma tapping that, it's hard for me to explain, but I will tell you this. I've seen it work. I felt it work.
Yeah.
It is a viable technique we use with great success.
Yeah. And obviously, because, there are lots of different things that go, and as you said, it's really difficult to describe HARP because of all the different things that it encompasses. And obviously, these first 9 years have been eye-opening for not just for you and Carrie, but for so many people. And I'm sure that the next 9 that are ahead are going to be doing the same thing.
It's a wild ride. I will tell you, as far as the trauma tapping, we've actually gone out to Brandwell Woods. And, when you're a senior in a facility like that, there's stress on you.
Yeah.
You're at a stage of your life where there's a lot of, uncertainty. So we actually went out there and did trauma tapping with them. We've gone throughout our community trying to spread the word, and we're really trying to make a difference in our county, and it much further than jail.
Yeah. Well, Sheriff Leonard, thank you so much for coming on the show, talking to us about the trip, talking to us about all of the things that I know HARP is doing and all of the various pieces that go into that. But thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Make sure you check us out on social media. On Twitter, it's at Chesterfield VA, and on Instagram, it's Chesterfield Virginia, one word. And on Facebook, you can check out our podcast page. Just search Chesterfield Behind the Mic. Now, make sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, or wherever it is that your shows are sold. And if you're so inclined to give us a rating or review, we greatly appreciate it. As always, a video version of our show is available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website at Chesterfield.gov/podcast. That's also where you can submit feedback anytime, make a suggestion, or just reach out to us. You can watch the show on WCCT Thursday through Sunday at 7, on the weekends at noon. That is Comcast Channel 98, Verizon Channel 20. Lastly, check out Chesterfield.gov/connect us to find out a number of other ways to connect with Chesterfield County. My thanks to my director, Martin Stith, my executive producer, Teresa Bonifas, and all the good folks from Constituent Media Services for all they do. And thanks to you for joining us today. So from all of us here in Chesterfield, thanks again for making us a part of your day. We'll see you again real soon. Take good care. From blogs to podcasts. And I'm very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. Weekly video segments and newsletters, social media, the latest community news.
And this is your Chesterfield News Minute for September 19th.
How to get in touch, and everything in between. If you want to know about Chesterfield County, our Connect With Us webpage has you covered. Chesterfield.gov/connect with us. Connect with us, your source for all things Chesterfield.